Should the Blazers trade Anfernee Simons? So a report came out today that the Blazers are going to look to trade, potentially, Anfernee Simons and Jeremy Grant. And while I think it's pretty obvious as to why they would trade Jeremy Grant, he is not on their timeline. They just signed a huge extension. I'm sure Portland doesn't want that money on their books because it's like a 5-year deal, has 4 years left at this point. But Anfernee Simons, of course, is still young. So I could understand why people might be questioning it. And with 2 years left on his deal, I believe, which is like $53 million. So it's not like a super small contract, but it's not anything crazy. The question would be, I'm sure people are asking, is why would they trade Anfernee Simons when he's only like 24 and he's gotten better every single year? Well, the problem is because they are in rebuild mode, they have gotten a lot of young talented guards younger than Anfernee Simons. So they just got Scoot last year, as we know, and of course they want to develop him. You also have Shaedon Sharpe, who was only in his second season. So you have those two players who have super high ceilings. And so Anfernee Simons is kind of the odd man out at this point due to, one, his contract. Again, it's not anything crazy, but those two are on their rookie contracts. So you could see why they might select those two over him since they are not winning at this moment. But in addition, again, he's still young, but he is 3-4 years older than both of those players. So if they're rebuilding and they're probably going to be in the lottery next year, projecting, especially if they're going to trade Jeremy Grant as well, then it kind of makes sense as to why Anfernee Simons might get traded. If they didn't have Scoot and Shaedon Sharpe, it might be a different story. But Anfernee Simons might be the biggest person to benefit from this trade. Now, from like a lifestyle standpoint, I don't know him, so he might love it in Portland and might not want to get traded. So from that standpoint, it may not, be the best for him. But in terms of basketball, he could end up getting traded to a very good team because he's a very good player. So I'm going to give my opinion on a few teams who I think should target him, will target him, and he would also be a good fit on. So I'm just going to say right off the bat, the Lakers are not on this list. The Lakers will target him. I am sure of that. But I don't think he would be the best fit there, and I think there's probably zero chance of that deal happening. Although, spoiler alert, there is a team on this list where it's probably unrealistic, but I think it's more realistic than the Lakers. So for that reason, the Lakers are not on this list because they will target him, but I see zero chance of that even happening, and I don't know if that's the best fit for Anfernee. So number 1 is the Utah Jazz. Now, we've heard a lot of reports that Lauri Markkanen might get traded, but it seems that Lauri Markkanen wants to stay, and he will sign that extension. And there have also been reports prior to these trade rumors that they want to build around Lauri right now. So if that's the case, Anfernee Simons would be a great fit alongside Lauri Markkanen, and he kind of fits the timeline. Anfernee Simons would add some necessary scoring to the team. We know he's a bucket. He's had games where he's made like 8 threes. Like, he can get it done on the offensive side of the ball. And then you have Lauri Markkanen. That's a nice combo. Now, I wouldn't say that this team, by adding Anfernee Simons, would be a championship contender yet. But they're putting, if they get Anfernee and they don't have to give up too much, they're definitely heading in the right direction. So I think this would be a good fit for Anfernee Simons. I think it might be a good move for the Jazz, especially if they're going to build around Lauri. And I think they will target him, or they should at least. Number 2 is the Clippers. Now, this is the team that I was mentioning where I don't think it's super realistic that he gets, traded to the Clippers. But I do see a small path. One of the biggest hurdles for the Clippers is their lack of picks. So from a pick standpoint, they really don't have much to offer Portland. But I don't know that, I think Portland wants, at least a couple picks back, right? But I don't know that they're trying to stockpile picks unless it's for next year's draft, which is, supposed to be a crazy good draft. But I don't know that they're trying to stockpile picks for 2030, 2031. They might be, but I don't know that they're necessarily doing that. I think they would want a couple picks, and they would want a nice young player to put alongside Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson. The Clippers have a ton of talented players on their roster. So there's no lack of talent there, but those players probably don't fit the timeline more than Anfernee Simons. So I don't know if this is actually realistic at all. It might be just as bad as the Lakers in terms of realistic wise. But I don't know. I just feel like he'd be a really good fit on the Clippers. Like, fit wise, this would be a really awesome fit. There might be some redundancy with him and Norman Powell. I get that, but I would think Anfernee would start and Norman Powell would still come off the bench. So you still have, like, they wouldn't, be interfering too much. It'd just be like scoring the starting lineup, scoring off the bench. But this may not be realistic at all. And the last team that I think might target him, should target him, and where he'd be a good fit, but of course this is not a winning situation like the Clippers per se, although the Clippers have some work to do, but like the Clippers are obviously closer to winning than the Wizards are. They just lost Tyus Jones. So now you really need, Jordan Poole is really more of a two guard. We get that, but like you really just need more guard play, more talent. And Anfernee Simons fits the timeline. Him and Jordan Poole are probably like the same age. So from that standpoint, it works. I do think him and Jordan Poole, I know that some people probably be like, they don't fit well together. It's too redundant. I actually don't think so. I actually think they fit decently well. However, I don't know that Anfernee Simons wants to go to the Wizards because I would assume he wants to win. I think the Wizards would love to have a talent like Anfernee Simons on the roster though, because they just need more talented players like Anfernee Simons. They really just need more. That's kind of where they are. They're rebuilding, we get it, but losing Tyus Jones, they lost Daniel Gafford, and I understand that like those players were win now players, so rebuilding, it wouldn't make sense to keep them anyway, but like you just need more talented players on the roster. And that's no slight at anybody on the roster because obviously if you're in the NBA, you're good, you're talented, we get it. Like, I'm not saying anything against that, but they need more players who are, getting closer to all-star level. Not that he was an all-star last year, but like, he could be an all-star in the future. So like, you need players of that caliber if you're trying to turn this rebuild around. I think out of these three trades, the Jazz would be the most realistic because, again, if they want to build around Lauri Markkanen, it makes sense fit-wise, it makes sense timeline-wise, it makes sense for the Blazers too because the Jazz have a ton of assets. We know Danny Ainge, stockpiling those picks over there. So like, it would be a win-win for everybody. Like, everybody would get something they wanted.